Hello, Harrisburg. I am Lenwood Sloan, your host and time traveler, and I am in the presence of the past, sitting in conversation with Miss Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Miss Frances, on a walk through Harrisburg, I noticed your statue on the corner of Walnut and 4th Street, which we call Thomas Jester Way. I noticed your banner hanging on the South Lawn. I noticed your name inscribed on pedestals, and it is amazing to see you in our time, and I'm wondering just why did you come back to Harrisburg for such a time as this from your 19th and early 20th century life?
For such a time as this, I love that statement. It captures my essence that I've left behind in my words, in my poetry, in my novels, in my lectures, in my sermons. And I wanted to come back to see how those words that I wrote and captured and poured out from my heart resonates today. I am very surprised that I can walk the streets of Harrisburg in this 2025 year, and it feels like not much movement forward has been made.
That's an important conversation to have. Now, you had a great catholicity of words. You had a cornucopia of poetry, and we're a generation of 144 characters and tweaks, and so I'll ask you later about what do you think about the language of our time. But I wanted to say that across the street from your statue is a sign placed by the Harrisburg Historic Society that says that the Underground Railroad was at that site on the entranceway of Tanner's Alley and the 8th Ward. And I wanted to ask you about your time with the quest for freedom, the plight of freedmen and freedom seekers, and your life contribution to
The quest of freedom for me started very early when I was abandoned by my father, and my mother died when I was nearly 3 years old. And I was born a free person in Baltimore, Maryland, just south of that Mason-Dixon line. But I was still entrenched in the enslavement that was all around me. And my uncle, who raised me, my Uncle William, he instilled in me that I am never truly free when I have brethren all around me that are enslaved. And I could hear those chains and smell the smells of enslavement when I sat in that schoolroom on Sharp Street in Baltimore. And it rang in my heart that I was going to give my life to making sure that the message of freedom and the work of freedom seeking was going to be done in everything I did, whether it was writing, weaponizing words for the struggle to inform people about what was happening, and then also to uplift and inspire, to give people hope for that call to action of seeking freedom, equality, whether it be male or female, whether it be Black or white or Jew or Christian. But we are all on this journey to freedom, or we are all on the journey to enslavement.
There are many forms of enslavement, as we know, both legislative and cultural. The monument to you in bronze by Miss Becky Alt has you handing the 15th Amendment back to your dear friend, Wim Howard Day. And where were you when the 15th Amendment was passed, and what was your feeling and your impression about it as a achievement of your vision?
Well, my congratulations and highest praises to Miss Becky Alt for capturing my likeness so beautifully, and those that are there with me at the gathering of the Crossroads. When the 15th Amendment was passed, I had just had my daughter Mary. She was a couple of years old. I had just lost my husband, and trying to find my place in the world. And I remember I was en route to Philadelphia from Ohio, where I had been a farmer's wife for 4 years. And I had a sense of bittersweetness. It was sweet for my men. Black men could vote, but bitter because I was still in the fight for all to have that right to cast a vote, to be a part of this democracy. And in 1870, when it was ratified, I recall standing in Philadelphia and thinking, well, there is so much more work for me to do. I'm crossing over the suffrage movement. And at that time, I joined what was current, what was, I believe you all might say today, on trend. Again, bittersweetness, because that movement that I see in your history books is so prevalent, the suffrage movement, didn't have space for me, for the Black women.
No, it would take 50 years from 1870, the passage of the 15th Amendment, to 1920, the passage of the 19th Amendment. And Pennsylvania was the fourth state in the Union to ratify the 15th Amendment, and the seventh state in the Union to ratify the 19th Amendment 50 years later. But your lifespan did not last long enough for you to see that vision. How do you feel about the women having the right to vote? And do you think we should be alarmed by how tentative the vote can be?
Sound every alarm bell, because voting it's an essential right. It is the exercising of our civic duty. It is the way that we raise our voice, that we say, this is the country that I want. And when that is threatened, yes, it is very alarming that it is, I love that word, tentative. When the amendment was ratified, the 15th, and as you said, this body expired in 1911, but coming back and knowing that now all citizens had the right to vote, I never thought or imagined that that would be at risk, that it would be questioned, that it would be challenged once there was that victory. It is very alarming.
Indeed, ma'am. Now you, Miss Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, I love to say the entire name, about the time of your peek in your literature, Stephen Foster wrote a song called Nellie Was a Lady. In that song, although it doesn't seem like very much to us today, he gave Miss Nellie a last name because at that time, women of color were only regarded by their first names and they had no last names. And so we exalt in saying Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Could you give us the lineage of the name?
Frances Ellen Watkins. So let's start with Watkins. Strong family name from roots in Maryland, and with decades of freedom and spirituality attached to it. So my family, my uncle, William Watkins, he was a preacher. He started the William Watkins School for Free Negro Children, which I attended, outpaced the boys in learning. He encouraged me to stand strong in myself and what I was blessed with, and not my gender, not my race, but in my intellect, in my words. So I carry that name very proudly. And then Harper. So with the work that I was doing as a teacher and lecturing, for a very long time, I felt I had no need of a husband. Not that it was a rebellion against marriage. I was just busy. And then once I turned the corner into my 30s, old maid, and strong in my opinions and my work, I did not really think that husband was in my future. And then there was Fenton Harper. And I met him in Ohio. And so now with the Harper marriage and union and that name of resilience coming out of Virginia. And at first he gave me children that he had from his previous marriage. And Harper, everyone under our roof was Harper. And I know there is value in being called by your given and then chosen name. We are to be named. I believe you have a movement. Say her name. Say my names, all of them, because they all wield power, and it humanizes me. So the world can't see me, but anything other than Frances Ellen Watkins Harper.
Powerful words, ma'am, both on the page and spoken. And though we do not hear your voice spoken very much, your words are still with us. Would you share some of your poetry?
Yes, I always carry my book of words, and I shall. One of my more known works that I am seeing on that information machine that you all have that brings up things instantly. I've been told this one comes up.
You mean our Google?
That is it.
That's it.
That is the Google.
Yes. Well, you need to Google Frances Ellen Watkins Harper.
Heard you that shriek? It rose so wildly on the air. It seemed as if a burdened heart was breaking in despair. Saw you those hands so sadly clasp the bowed and feeble head, the shuddering of that fragile form, the look of grief and dread. Saw you that sad imploring eye, and every glance was pain, as if a storm of agony were sweeping through the brain. She is a mother, pale with fear. Her boy clings to her side, and in her kirtle vainly tries his trembling form to hide. He is not hers, although she bore for him a mother's pains. He is not hers, although her blood is coursing through his veins. He is not hers, for cruel hands may rudely tear apart the only wealth of love that binds her breaking heart. His love has been a joyous light that o'er her pathway smiled, a fountain gushing ever new amid life's desert wild. His lightest word has been a tone of music around her heart. Their lives a streamlet blent in one. Oh, Father, must they part? They tear him from her circling arms, her lasting fond embrace. Oh, nevermore her eyes to look and gaze on his mournful face. No marvel then, no bitter shrieks disturb the listening air. She is a mother, and her heart is breaking in despair.
Beautiful, man.
The slave mother.
Beautiful, the slave mother. So I must tell you that at the site where the monument called A Gathering at the Crossroads is placed is a sign from the Pennsylvania Historic and Museums Commission that said that Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison spoke on that corner to the people of Harrisburg and their 8th Ward about preserving and promoting the right to vote. It's important for us to remember, Ms. Harper, that in Pennsylvania, men of color voted until 1838, when the Constitution of Pennsylvania was changed after the Andrew Jackson administration, and they lost that right to vote. So 1870 was really a restoration or a recovery of a vote. Mr. Douglass had been there speaking and was chased, as according to history, by mobs up Tanner's Alley and into the Wesley AME Church. You knew Mr. Douglass both politically, collegially, and personally. And could you share with us some of your observations of Mr. Douglass, some of your encounters with Mr. Douglass?
He was sharp with his wit and intellect and very direct. So we traveled in the same circles, championing freedom as abolitionists, championing the right to vote, but our paths were more parallel. I championing them the right to vote and the suffrages for women. And Mr. Douglass was very direct, and he actually helped me change my course of thought on where my allegiance would be. Would it be for the Black men to vote or for the women to vote? And I had to make a very difficult decision to align. That's where our paths were very close, that he influenced my thinking that I needed to exert myself and give all of my energies to getting my brothers the vote and championing for them, and leaving the white women's suffrage movement and focusing on supporting that and esteeming Black men. And so...
May I ask you to go a bit further? Ms. Harper was frequently asked, are you a Black woman or a Black woman? And that the suffragist questioned you on your allegiance. Will you speak a bit more about that?
I am Black woman. My allegiance is to my race. Period, as they say today. And that was not always apparent, and it's something that resonated with me. I thought doing good, doing this work for all people was enough. But declaring my allegiance to the race, my race, and its leadership, which I yield and give and acknowledge needed to come through the Black man.
And we are having a national dialogue about the difference between race and culture. You bring up a very important question because your crossroads also ignited with John Brown. And would you talk about your relationship with John Brown?
My brother John Brown, he did what many of our race refused to do. And when he was on his way to his death, Harper's Ferry, for the Harper's Ferry insurrection, I was able to get a letter to him. I thanked him for all that he did for my race, for my people, for the cause. And when his body was brought back to Philadelphia, I was there with his wife and laid the body out. And his wife Mary found my letter tucked in the inner pocket of his jacket. John Brown had my words next to his heart when he made that ultimate sacrifice.
That's amazing, ma'am. That is astounding. I need to ask you, our interests and your achievement and your guidance through your words have kept you in our hearts and therefore kept you in our presence. But as you come back for such a time as this, who do you see continuing your work?
Everyone, but the everyday person. So it is for every citizen, for everyone who champions and understands that the true essence of freedom is not encased in a race or culture or an age or an identity. It is the foundation of humanity. So it is a very inclusive call to everyone, and that it is everyone's responsibility to take up the mantle and move forward and do whatever it is that is right, which is creating a community in which humanity is central. It is the focal. It is not legislated. It is not regulated. It's a heart issue. And you don't have to look very far. You don't have to know Mr. Chester or what Mr. Douglas did or know all of my poems, although that would be wonderful. Just know and search in your heart that it beats through that equality, civility for all is the right thing.
And so, ma'am, if we were to gather like Mr. Douglas did, 1,000 people from Harrisburg to that corner to hear you speak, what would be your call to action to us today?
The time is now, the time is always. And we err when we get comfortable and we think the fight is over, because it will never be over. There will always be a people, a person, a politic, an ideology that is going to challenge the power of the people and the individual. And you must remain vigilant, understanding history, understanding who really came before, what really happened, and it doesn't exist in one book. It is hidden. It is hidden for a reason. So the call to action is go and find the truth from our past. Bring it into the present and reckon with it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the great, so that we may journey forward with power and truth and protecting the rights that we have, because they will continue to be challenged.
So Harrisburg, we deputize you to be history detectives and to go and find the truth, stitch it into your personal narrative and your public service. Miss Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, thank you so very much. May we keep you in our hearts and in our spirits and in our time. I'm Lenwood Sloan, your host and time traveler, and I'll see you soon in one generation or another.